What up, everyone? How you doing? Happy New Year. Hope you had a great holiday. Go over to the website, elliottmarshall.com, and you can find all the information about what's coming up with this Rocky Mountain retreat that we will be doing in March. So head over to the website, elliottmarshall.com. All information will be there so that you can sign up early and get yourself a spot. What's up, guys? This is former UFC fighter Elliott Marshall, and you are listening to The Blueprint. I believe that there's a blueprint of how the most successful people structure their lives. They don't all do it the same. They don't all do the same things. And on this podcast, you're going to hear inspirations, motivations, and stories about how they go through their life. These stories will give you clues and tricks of exactly how you can discover your passion, find your power, and then go give your purpose to the world. Thank you so much for listening. Let's jump into this week's episode. Man, this episode of the podcast is with one of my favorite employees at the UFC, Brendan Fitzgerald. Brendan randomly came up to me when I didn't know him backstage at a fight and said hello, and then we started talking, and now we've built this friendship. So the podcast, how he got into journalism, one, and then two, man, this growth journey, this personal growth journey that he has been on for the past 7-8 years or so. So it was a really great conversation. I hope you enjoy it as listening to it as much as I enjoyed doing it. Without further ado, here we go. Brendan Fitzgerald. Brendan, my dude, how you doing?
Doing great, Elliott. Great to be with you. Happy New Year.
Yes, sir.
And I purposely stayed away from like all forms of content and like podcasts and being on air for like the last 3 weeks. So I'm refreshed. You're getting the best version of me. You're getting the hungry version of me.
Me too, bro. Like, like we were just talking offline about like the retreat that I did in the couple weeks that I had. And when that was over, I was like, I'm shutting her down.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't do a single thing. Like I said, I was going to like do this work, and I didn't do a single thing.
Yeah. I lurked on social, but I, after the last UFC event of the year, which I called on the 17th, I was like, I'm not posting anything new until January 1st. I might have fired out a tweet or two, but yeah, man, it was nice to just unplug for a while.
It was. I want to give you
kept the phone on do not disturb for like 2 full weeks. It was fantastic.
I want to give you and Mike Ricci some big credit.
Oh yeah,
really nice concert.
Oh yeah, our performance.
Yeah,
my first gig. I started playing piano in 2020. In the pandemic, we're all looking for things to do at home. Yeah, filling our time with different things. And we got my son. We wanted to get him into piano. He turned 5 that summer. We got him a piano for his birthday, and he started learning on an app. And I was like, well, let me start learning on an app. And then my wife started learning on an app. And I just fell in love with it. I grew up with a piano in my living room, took lessons for 1 year because my mom made me, and I hated it. Like I just wanted to be done with it so I could try drums or guitar or something. It wasn't cool enough. And I am obsessed with the piano, and that was the first of hopefully many more gigs. We'll see.
Man, so the listeners can understand, when you go to weigh-ins for a UFC fight, and I guess this will bleed into a little controversy as well. The UFC, first of all, knows whether you're going to make weight or not every single time when you step on that scale. So the whole Charles Oliveira thing was absolute bullshit. But little sidebar there. I
don't think you're alone in thinking that. I wasn't there, so I don't totally know.
It's impossible. They know whether
as a fighter, you certainly know as a fighter.
Yeah, you step on the scale with them backstage, and then you go step on the official scale, so they know whether you're making it or not.
Yeah.
So anyway. After when you get to this backstage weigh-in thing, it's a couple hours before when they do it at the Apex. And Brendan is Mike the head producer?
He's a producer. There's our coordinating producer Zach. Okay. There's Michael LaPlante, who produces most of the pay-per-views, but Ricci also produces the pay-per-views. But he is one of the he was one of the main.
He's one of the big dogs.
Producers. Yeah, he's one of the main producers of UFC live television for sure.
You guys were playing a concert for us of holiday music. So you were playing the piano or a keyboard, and Mike was on trumpet, or what was he on?
Trumpet. He was a trumpet performance major in college. Right. So for all and now if you want to be a TV producer, I don't recommend being a trumpet performance major.
Sure,
he obviously figured it out, but yeah, he is a very good musician. He can read music like so easy, and piano's easy enough that I've been playing for 2 years that I could just play chords enough. And I have gotten good enough to like play in public, but there's nothing like the bright lights, as you know, as an athlete, where it's just if you mess up one thing, you're just like, oh, shoot, you're catching up. But we made it happen. People like
it was really nice. It was really nice. It was a nice touch for us because everyone's back there uncomfortable, not happy, a little grumpy.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, because that was one of the concerns, is just like these fighters just trying to make weight, and like they're obviously not at their best, and like, are they going to be okay with people Christmas carols in the other room? And one more shout out to Chris Costello, who's UFC PR. Okay. And it was his idea. I wouldn't shut up about learning the piano in 2020. And he was just like, hey, you want to play Christmas at the December show? And I was just like, I'm not ready for that. But I circled back with him in like September. I was just like, hey, Chris, remember that idea? Like, can we do that? And he was like, absolutely. Let's make that happen. So there we go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, you are an announcer for the UFC.
Correct.
That's a hard gig to get. Not many people have had it.
Yeah.
Especially so, there was back in the old days when it was awful, and the first, I won't say awful. Everything was new about the sport.
Right.
And then the first duo was Goldie and Rogan.
That was the first like real duo that people would expect. Yeah.
Where did this, would we call this journalism, or would we call this announcing? What genre do we call this?
There's a very big difference between journalism and play-by-play announcing.
Mm-hmm.
Journalism is Adam Schefter-ish.
Got it.
That's like inside reporting, and that journalism to me is information.
You're breaking stories. Kevin in the MMA world, Kevin Iole is a journalist.
Kevin Iole. Ariel Helwani skates the line. He's not pure journalism, but he does break plenty of stories. I would say Brett Okamoto is like the guy who breaks a lot of stories, a lot of information. And the lines are muddied more than ever because of just the way content works. But
by the way, I'm a big Brett Okamoto fan. I saw him after Drew's fight, and he was just like, he wasn't working. He was just like there a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And man, he was super cool. And I always
great.
I always get the most out of people, or like think the most of people when they're not working and they're cool to you. Yeah. Right. Because when they're working, of course, like, especially for the UFC or doing their job, of course, they're going to be cool to you. It's professional.
Yeah.
Right. Man, he was the man. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So anyways, my job now is announcer, play-by-play announcer.
Right.
And it's very different being in the UFC because of the nature of the sport. So you could even say that Joe Buck is more journalist than me as a football announcer, because he works for ESPN and he is not an employee of the team. He is not an employee of the NFL. So obviously they want to have a good relationship with the entity that they're covering.
Mm-hmm.
But I was told very early on, and this is no secret, I am promotion, not journalism. I work for the fight promotion. I work for the UFC.
Your job is to pump the UFC.
My job is to serve the sport in a good way, call the fights, bring energy, whatever. But I'm not breaking stories, because I know a lot of the fights before they're announced. And like, I'm privy to all this inside information. Now, if I wanted to break stories, I could break stories all over the place, until I did it once. And then my boss would be like, not your job.
Right.
There's like, so announcing as a play-by-play announcer, in large part, I wouldn't really look at it as journalism, especially in my role with the sport and the company, and the way that MMA is just the way that MMA operates, UFC and beyond.
Where did you start before you had the UFC gig?
I was journalist first. I think that's the path to go, because it's very rare that you're just going to come out of college and just be like, have this, I don't know. There's different paths. The path that I took was TV sports anchor on local news stations. I could have gone play-by-play and get hired by a minor league baseball team, and then I'm kind of promotion announcer like I am now, where it's like, I'm not going to downplay, or I'm not going to talk bad about this team that might have lost 4 games in a row, but they're my team. I work for the team. So there's that path, but I took the other path, which is I wanted to be a Sports Center anchor, sit in a studio, highlights, do stories, that sort of thing. And so the way to start that is locals, you're in Denver area.
Right.
So Channel 8 or Channel 4, sure. Channel 9, NBC, Channel 9. No, some people that worked at Channel 9. They got a sports guy. He goes to the Broncos games. He does the highlights from the studio. He does Avs highlights and Denver Nuggets and Colorado Rockies and all that. So I did that. And you have to start small city. So my first job on air was in Casper, Wyoming, 4 hours up the road from your neck of the woods. And we would go to Denver like on big weekends. Like it was a big deal. Let's get out of here. Let's go to the big city. Let's go like to a real mall and a Rockies game and a bar that's like not a cowboy smoky bar. So 2.5 years in Casper, Wyoming at the local NBC affiliate. And you don't have pro sports there. So we showed highlights of the Denver teams, but also you're covering high school. There's 2 high schools in town. There was a junior college that had a basketball team and a volleyball team. There was arena league football. There was low-level minor league baseball. And you just cover sports the way that they do. And so I did that on the way up. Went to South Texas for a couple of years. Got the biggest break in that realm to Boston, which is where I'm from. I'm from
how do you move up in this? What's like for example, fighting is very simple. You beat somebody up, and then you beat another person up, and then you move up. How do you move? How do you get out of Casper?
Yeah, it's very different. I feel like now to make your way up in media because there's so many more channels.
Okay.
When you can have a YouTube channel blow up. And then ESPN wants to hire you because you have influence and attention.
Right.
So it's very different now, but I would still say the traditional path for somebody who wants to be a sports announcer, sports anchor, whatever, is to go small market to big market. It's a contract-based business. So when you go to a small market like Casper, you're making very little money, but you're getting good experience. And you can't go entry level on TV in a big city by and large, especially for males. There's also different rules for males and females. But
we're not good looking enough.
Well, it's just like, there's a lot more 24-year-old women on the sidelines of a college football game that have the skills and that are good. But it's different things. Like there's a million of me. There's a million guys like me.
And on the flip side, though, there's very few women in the broadcast booth.
Very few women in the broadcast booth. And then also, if they want to start they have to make certain choices. It's just a different arc. Like they can spike, be up top for longer. Males tend to have to climb longer, but then there's trade-offs for all of this. So anyways, to answer your question, sign a 2-year contract in Casper. At the end of 2 years, then you're like free to look for a job. You got to kind of like pay your dues, put in your time. Sure. At the end of 2 years, okay, now I'm going to look for a job. Okay, now in South Texas, they needed a sports anchor. It was a market jump. A bigger market is what you're saying. Yeah, they number the cities. There's 210 media markets there was back when I was there. Casper's 197.
Got it.
Then where I was in Texas, like Brownsville area was like 87.
Got
90, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
And like every market kind of has a ranking. New York is 1, LA is 2, Chicago's 3, right? So, so I go from South Texas to Boston to do the same thing, local news, sports guy, local news, but then I'm covering my teams. That was huge. And then I thought I'd be there for a long time, but it just wasn't doing it for me in terms of the job. Like I was home and my family was there and stuff, but I didn't like the job as much as I thought I would. I thought I'd be the 30, 40-year guy. I'm there until I'm 65. I've covered the Red Sox for 40 years, whatever. But it was just so formulaic. It was the same thing. It was like April, Red Sox opening day, summer, Red Sox, Patriots training camp starts, then the Patriots season, then the winter sports start, playoffs here. It was like the same thing, though. You couldn't go in depth because you only had 3 or 4 minutes every newscast. So it's very surface level covering of sports. And I really liked it. But after a couple of years of that, I was like, there's got to be something more. Why can't I go network? ESPN was always the dream. Now I'm on the cusp of it. I'm in Boston. That's the next step. Worked for ESPNU. That was my first sports network job where you're at a place where everyone's talking sports. And I was doing mostly highlight shows of college football and college basketball games. And then I got laid off in 2017. In April, there was a bunch of ESPN layoffs. And summer of 2017, 3 months after my layoff, Dana White's Contender Series started. So I got laid off as the UFC was looking for broadcasters for Dana White's Contender Series. I was brought in for an audition along with like 10 other crews of people and whatever. And I got the job.
Nice.
Here we are, man.
There you go.
Wild, right?
You know, I think we talked about this when I was on your podcast. I'm sure I talked about it. I believe in luck and preparation and all of that. But yeah, like, you know, it's the luck that your hard work actually pays off.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know,
you do definitely need a bit of luck, and some will call it timing, some will call it luck, whatever you want to call it. Right. I think that one of the biggest reasons why I had success after the ESPN layoff was how I was thinking at the time, because there were people in that layoff. There were like 100 on-air people that got let go. And then there was even some behind the scenes people. And I know some people were just like devastated. They're just like, oh, they had been with the company for a long time. And they were just like really destroyed by it. And for me, the worst part of the layoff was the 3 months before, because it was a big layoff round that was being rumored already. Richard Deitch covered sports media for Sports Illustrated back then. And he was writing about these upcoming layoffs for like 3 months. So like every week it seemed like there was a new blog post, and I would see it and I would think about it and I would worry about it from like February through March. And then like, I remember April 26th was the day, and it was dominating my thinking, because I was just like, this is bad. I mean, you know, I don't know if I'm going to get laid off, but I'm definitely on the cut because of how the business is changing. Like I never thought I'm not doing good enough. It was just like, people are cutting cable, people are streaming more. Our network and shows aren't really built for the new landscape. And but when I did get laid off, it was like this huge sense of relief. And it was like, okay, now I can go chase what's next. And I'm not dead, and we're fine, and I'm gonna be fine. I can get gainfully employed in different areas. I will be fine. And so let's go see what's next. And I was excited about it. And I think that really mattered.
Very interesting that the first time that I was released from the UFC, I was the first way. I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, fuck, oh, fuck. You know?
I was that way for a day.
Yeah.
You know?
And then the second time when my career actually ended, I was like, okay, let's go. Like I actually looked at the building that our Denver school was in. I looked at that building 3 days later.
Yeah.
3 days after my last fight. So it's very interesting, that mindset of the difference in mindsets.
Yeah, that's right around the time too when I started like reading books on personal development, self-help, listening to Jim Rohn, and like trying to journal a little bit, and what like that space, right? I was always like, I'm the guy who eats wings and drinks beer at the sports bar. And that was when I was like transitioning, I think, because I had a son in 2015. So I was just like, I'm like a dad now. Like there's more to it than this. There's more to it. Like it's not about like, let me just wait till Friday until I can get hammered and then just deal with the weekend and watch sports and talk nothing about sports and be the cynical sports fan that has a sarcastic line. Like I was that guy. And that's when I started shifting. It wasn't immediate, but I was just like, oh, like all of these football coach sound bites that I'm rolling my eyes at and saying they're boring. That's how you become successful. Like when Nick Saban says it's all about the process and you're like, that's boring. Give me like Rex Ryan yelling at some reporter or something. It's like, no. The successful ones know that it's not always sexy. It might be boring, but it's what you got to do. And then it opens up this whole new world of achievement. And so I just got so excited by that.
What do you think was what do you think triggered it? Was it your son?
Yeah, kind of. Because in our case, and in a lot of people's cases, but in our case, especially because my job as an on-air person is like, there's a lot of work from home. There's a lot more work from home than you would think, especially now for me in the pandemic and a lot of these events in Las Vegas. But when I was a studio guy at ESPNU, I would have shows where I had to like go in and host things 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week. And then like they'd give you but sometimes they were long days. Sometimes it's like you do 10 hours of like halftime shows and highlight shows, sometimes even like 12, 13 hours on a college football Saturday. So then you're going in 3 days a week, maybe 3.5 days a week type of thing. So it was a lot of time at home, which is good. But also like still need something to do, baby sleep. And it's not about going out. It's not about playing golf as much and whatever. So it was like, all right, what am I going to fill my time with? And I think I just like read a couple of strategic books early, like had read some blogs. Like I already liked James Clear. I think James Clear was already like kind of writing his blog back then and stuff. And I read a book called The Practicing Mind. I have it on like my Apple books, but I don't have a physical copy. But The Practicing Mind was like this 100-page book that I saw. It's like, this is a good book to read type of thing. And then that was like really this catalyst for like, oh, that made me think a lot differently. I'm excited about what I can accomplish. I'm excited about things that I never really thought of in terms of achievement, in terms of like where I want to go or what I want to do. And then, so I started like reading more books like that. And then, it just steamrolls.
It's interesting what it does for you as a human.
Yes.
I find I wonder if Nick Saban, like, because you brought him up and he talks about, about success. I wonder if he calls himself successful.
Right.
Because like, that's just that, like when you say I'm successful, it sounds almost like the journey is over.
Yeah. It's like, like, it's funny. Like you want to like chase success. Like when I'm in Casper, I'm just like, I just want to be a success. I want to have a successful career. Mm-hmm. And then like, if it all stopped right now, most people would say have been objectively successful.
Right.
But for me, I have never wanted to work more on fun and projects that drive me that I don't need to do, but I view it as the next step and I want to keep chasing it. Whereas back then, sometimes I kick myself. I'm just like, gosh, I could have learned this like 7 years ago. And like, where would I be now and whatever. But I think it's just part of the process. It depends on when everyone looks. But that's why I like when I see kids who are like out of college, like production assistants and stuff, and they're like 22, 23, 24 years old, and they're already reading those books, The Practicing Mind or 48 Laws.
Whatever
like,
book they're reading. And
I'm just like, oh, good. Keep doing it. Good for you. Like you're 15, you're 12 years ahead of where I was, Mm-hmm. And so I just like really applaud. I like to surround myself with kids. Like, also you want to be in good with the executives and the higher ups and the decision makers. But like, I get just as much joy as like being around the kids these days who are in their early 20s and mid 20s, who are like on their way up in their realm, but I can tell are like sharp, driven, motivated, doing the right things. That gives me so much energy too. I'm like so happy for them. And it's like, I feed off of that too.
It's so interesting. What this journey of personal, like you said, personal development, personal growth, whatever it is, it's so funny what it does and how you see the world so much differently.
Way different.
Way differently. Sometimes for me, and not in a conceited way, I guess, but I mean, I can try not to be conceited in the way I say it. Yeah. It's hard for me to be around people that are not on the journey, that are not like pushing and not on just to be better for themselves, not for anyone else. It's I know. So interesting.
I struggle with the same thing because you have friends and people that you've been close with for a long time that you still really love.
You love even, them. Yeah.
And you're just like, but Elliot, this is a new thing. Like, I'm just kind of learning about this concept of allowing, like the law of allowing. And part of like basically the law of allowing is like, you have to allow everybody else to do them, because sometimes it's not like I want to change them, but it's just like, how do we hang out? How do we find common ground? How do we talk? How do we enjoy each other's company when I've gone down this path and you've either stayed on this path or gone down this path or, had different interests? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I do find myself consciously thinking of just like, well, nobody has to do what you do. Certainly you'll be drawn to other people that are like you and like into the same things, but that's just natural.
It was mine changed a little bit when I started to do better with it. When I was actually in a really big fight with my jiu-jitsu teacher and business partner. And, you know, I was very upset with him, and I got a coach, and this coach said to me, he was like, Elliot, no one acts outside their highest value.
Right.
Like what they value the most.
Yes. You have to, it is very wise to allow other people to do what gives them joy.
Yes.
Right. Sometimes, because I covered, to me, the Red Sox winning the World Series was like the biggest deal in my whole life. And then in 2004, they won it. And it was like, oh my God, it's the best ever. And then in 2007, they won it again. And the Patriots, Boston went on this run where they're winning all these titles. And I tell like my sports fan, I tell my sports fan friends, though, I'm just like, the best day in your life is the day that your favorite team wins the title. The worst day is the day after. It'll never, ever be as good and as fun. And then just pile it on all these titles to the point where I'm just like, all right, the Red Sox won it every 4 years for like, 15 years, every 18 years,
whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. And then also couple that with the fact that when you're in the business, like I am, like I covered sports in Boston, like I went into the Red Sox locker room. 12-year-old me is like, holy cow. Like, what did you do to go to heaven? Because that's where you found yourself. But then when you're older and then you see it and you're just like, well, this guy's from Texas. He might be traded next week. This guy's from California. And, some of them really connect with the city. Plenty of them don't, because it's a business to them. And when you see how the sausage is made from a business perspective, team sports and pro sports and all these things that people, just love, and it's a religion, the shine gets taken away. That's not to say I don't love sports, but I do love it in a different way. And so point being,
I hate fighting. I hate it.
Well, so point being, to some people who are like still diehard fans of like a sport, like a team sport, I'm just like, gosh, you're putting a lot of your energy into like this group of men, all younger than us, that are like from different areas, playing for your team. It's their job. The end of the season, they're going to smile before you do after they lose in the playoffs, and on we go. But I have to like recognize that like this following of a sport brings them joy, and allow it, and let them celebrate what they want to celebrate and deal with it.
Look, that changed it for me. As soon as I could be like, okay, it's not about my highest value, it's his highest value. And he's always going to do that, as I will. Yeah. I'm no different. Right. We just differ on what our highest value is. Correct. And I can't put mine on his. And if I do that, this is where all of the tension and the friction will come. So that was I think I did probably, 6 months of coaching with this guy, 8 months of coaching. And that was, for me,
that was the breakthrough.
That happened on like literally day one. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it just sees that, and you can read that in a book, or you can hear it from somebody else, or on a podcast, or however you get it. But those are the good moments.
What is the journey like for you? Look, you're in this personal, like you are on this path for your life, but you look at a business like the UFC, fighting. Fighting is a very, very cutthroat business, as all pro sports are. Yeah. How does that, how do you balance the two for you? Right. Because like, what else? I don't know what else to say other than fighting.
Well, I will say
the dirtiest whore in the business. Like, I don't think there's any dirtier whore than fighting. And look, I'm not trashing Dana White or the UFC. I'm not saying that. It is just the nature of fighting. Boxing is this way. Every fighting sport has always been this way. It's a hard balance.
Yeah. I'll say this, and building on what I just said about like, I don't have the passion for the Boston teams like I used to, or any pro team. And I never will, probably, unless my son becomes this huge fan and we get into it together type of thing. But I'll always not like crumble when a team loses. I just laugh it off and whatever. I'm in it more for the story. Like, I'd rather have my team lose an incredible game than to have them win by 40 points. Sure. It's like, what are we here for? This is entertainment. But fighting, I haven't lost that with fighting. I've been covering fight. And that's why I think I love it so much. And that I was very gripped by it right away, because it's just very raw. The same way that you're not going to look away when two people fight in a parking lot. Like, it's just this real thing. It's as old as time in terms of competition, drama. Not that every fight is like the be all end all in terms of exciting, but
you're wondering. You're wondering like, the whole time.
I'm not like one of those guys that's like, we're only on the 5th prelim. Like this probably won't be good. I'm just like, what's going to happen here? We don't know. Might be the best moment of the night in the next 30 seconds.
Right.
And our main event might be a clunker, or we're building up to this main event, which is a huge fight. Look at all these we have in store. If this one isn't so exciting, guess what? It's over in 15 minutes.
Right.
So like, and never have to worry about that with Drew Dober, just going to say. But
bro, he gives me a heart attack.
I can't imagine what that guy is like to coach.
Heart attack. Man.
Oh man, I love him so much.
Look, I love him, but we'll talk about it in a second. Go.
So I just have been gripped by fighting and calling combat sports in a way that I've never been excited about any other job. And fighting is, as you say, cutthroat, but like honestly, like I'm not in fighting. I'm in TV sports broadcasting. Yeah. And so my job's very different, obviously, than a fighter. It's like, I know that they're risking a lot physically, mentally, from an employee standpoint, or from from their contract standpoint, like where their next fight might be, they need to perform or else whatever. I have a TV contract with the UFC. That's like, and I just signed a new contract this past year. And so thank you. It's fantastic. It's again, I'm like just so excited to stay with him because I love the sport so much. But for me, it's like, I'm still very much a TV sports broadcaster that covers fighting, that works for the NFL of fighting. I don't have to worry about plenty of things that a lot of other people do.
Our relationship started because you came up to me backstage in the Apex.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt you were very genuine, like, so where did this, very genuine in the sense of like, you really wanted to just talk to Elliot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see people every week, every week there's fights, however many you cover. Where does that, I don't know this word, it's not generosity. Where does that I don't know
that word is either.
Yeah.
Genuineness.
Yes. Where does that come from for you?
So this goes back to covering team sports in Boston, where when you're in Casper and South Texas, and when you're in these small markets and you're still watching your teams on TV, and you're like, gosh, I just love to cover big sports and be at these big events. Then you go to the big events. And like I said, you go into a Red Sox locker room or Patriots locker room, and you're like, you see them up close and you go, everyone's a person. We're all just people.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy's went to University of Michigan. This guy went to Southern California, really good at baseball. Now he's in the league, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he has a wife, kids. So you start seeing them as people more. Then, but you still like, we're at arm's length because of the role that I was in, like media. I wasn't like buddy with the players. Then you go to ESPNU, and now I'm hosting shows. And instead of working with just other broadcasters and reporters, I'm working with analysts at ESPNU. So Kevin Carter was our like analyst for halftime shows. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams.
Sure.
He played for the Titans, like all pro defensive lineman, amazing guy, like the best guy ever. So now this guy that I remember who was drafted in the top 10, who won a Super Bowl, who played on the Titans, whatever. Jason Sehorn was another guy that I worked with. So like, again, went to a Super Bowl with the Giants. Like he was a, white cornerback. That's already a big deal, but also like he was a big name, kind of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
He was married to an actress. So then you even see them more as people. And then
I think you're going the wrong way with this. Hold on, let me stop you. I'm a nobody. I'm just some. No. But my larger point is not they're a big deal. So I want to be genuine to them. My point is sports changed for me from rooting for teams to connecting with people. Got it.
So like, that's another reason why I love MMA and the UFC so much, is because you can pick your people that you really like. And you can really like connect with like-minded people. And the story can be built on people. I think that's one of the strongest things about UFC. The story is built on people and not on logos and laundry. teams like guy plays for the Patriots, gets traded, all of a sudden he's wearing a different helmet, whatever, get out of here. Like, good to have you. I hope you're bad now. I hope our team's good and you're bad. And I hope you stink and our player that we got.
I used to be very neutral about Tampa Bay until they got Tom Brady. And as soon as they got Tom Brady, I fucking hated them. Because I dislike Tom Brady as a player, right? Like Tampa Bay wasn't even on my radar. Yeah, you're the opposite.
I went Patriots fan for a long time.
Right.
And Patriots, and I love Tom Brady, and I love that he's our quarterback. And then he goes to Tampa, and I'm like, I guess I'm a Bucs fan.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And so anyways, to answer so like one of my great joys is that I get to connect with people and like finding out their story and knowing their story. And it's not about you play for the Red Sox, I hope you can win a lot of games for my team. It's like, man, where did you come from? What was your path? What was your journey? How did like the ups and downs of your life? That's interesting to me. And so like it's very, and fighters have that in spades.
And I think fighting is such an intense thing.
Yeah.
I think part of what the fighting thing does for this is it's so intense that you must build very intense connected relationships, and it brings it out naturally because like, for example, in Drew Dober's last fight, he got destroyed in the first round.
Yeah.
Right. He got destroyed, not in a way that he was going to get knocked out. Right. But in a way that like, you were like, how is he going to win this fight?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he sits down in the corner. He realizes it too. He looks at me and Oscar dead in the eye and goes, tell me what to do differently.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah. Like, what am I doing?
Because what I'm doing ain't working. He realized it. But the only way that question comes from him, and then we can give him advice, and then he can go listen to it, is if that connection between on the human level, in my opinion, is there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've cornered people that I didn't have any connection with barely.
Yeah.
Right. They just asked me to corner them at a local fight. And like, you know, they were my friend's friends. So I said, yes, you know, early in my career of coaching. And I tell him what to do in the corner. I look at him. I was like, do you know what you're going to do? And he goes, yeah, I'm going to fuck him up. I was like, word, you go fuck him up. Right. Because like he listened to nothing of what I said because we had no real connection.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, you know, 30 things that I could list as to why I, you know, like you called me genuine and like why I think I jive with this job and this role so much. But, you know, the individual sport of it, the intensity of fighting. And then another thing is too, I get into personal development, reading books and that whole genre of things. And I really enjoy it. And I'm like gripped by it. And then you go to martial arts where it's very clear, like you're in this space. And then also like, even if fighters don't have a podcast or whatever, it's just like fighters in particular, or I guess it's just more out there because of the nature of the sport. They are obsessed with 1% better. They're obsessed with what can I do next? What's my next step in the journey? How do I evolve? And then also like the martial arts code of like how many fighters are just like, yep, I stopped drinking because class is early and I want to feel great tomorrow. So I don't do that. And it's not like everybody's like that, but I connected and admired so many martial artists, mixed martial artists, fighters, whatever you want to call them, because that element in their lives is very clear. Sometimes like I'll talk to a fighter and it's like, all right, so what did you focus on for this camp? Or like, what thing are you working on? And then just be like, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I found my system. And like, it's not like I'm going to downgrade their skill and ability and what they're putting on the line, but I'm just like, that's not really like, that's not what the great ones say.
Right.
You know? And so, you know, with you, I already knew that you were like kind of the process and the next step and how do I level up and how do I help other people level up? And so, those are the people I enjoy the most, gravitate toward the most. And there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
It's which is why our sport is so connected, right? Like, it's like, you know, there's the fighting and there's the trash talk and there's the bickering, but there is just this inherent respect in this circle that for sure. I'm not in, but I am.
But you see it though.
I see it. And I'm adjacent to it. I'm inside, but I'm not like, you know, I don't have 4-ounce gloves on, but
for sure. 2 questions that I really ask people as I like to end the podcast. One, why did you say yes to this? Now, look, I know we're friends, right? Like, and I came on yours and we said we would swap, but like, I'm not Joe Rogan. I don't have a massive podcast. I'm not Helwani, and things like that. So, and we all have limited time, right? There's a limited time that anybody can do anything. We're like, look, if Rogan calls and he's like, yo, I need you to fly down to Austin tomorrow, you're going to make that fucking happen, right?
Oh my goodness. I've told people like Paul Felder, I'm just like, why haven't you been on Rogan yet? I said, if he asked me if I could be on his podcast, I would tell him I could be at the airport in an hour.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because you know what it will do for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what it will do for you.
Right.
So, why take the time out of your day other than like, a homie friend?
So, I mean, it's tough. I always like to say yes. And when I have time to say yes, then I'll do them all.
Right.
But there's a bunch of college kids out there and whatever. Now, during the pandemic, I would do a ton because we would have to go stay at a hotel the night before, even at the Apex. So even though I'm here in town, I have to go down to Courtyard Marriott. So I'd get all these requests or whatever. And then I'd like look at my schedule and be like, hey, I can give you 30 minutes or 45 minutes on Saturday morning. Because on the day of the show, I usually kind of have all my prep done and I'm just like hanging out at this Marriott Courtyard before going to the Apex.
Sure.
But now it's like, yeah, limited time, especially at home. I, number one, owed you a favor. Number two, really connect with you in terms of what we like and enjoy and personal development space. So these are the shows that I like to do the most. I don't like to go on shows that are fight previews. Right. Like, hey, can we preview the upcoming pay-per-view? And I'm just like, listen, I don't pick fights, kind of can't pick fights. And also just in the nature of like, I have to kind of stay in my lane as a play-by-play guy. I can't be a hot take guy. So by and large, like I can't say anything interesting about this. Right. Like I can't talk shit about this fighter A or fighter B and I can't, whatever. So I just like to stay away from those. But these ones are the ones I like to do because this is kind of like my podcast, but it's your podcast. It's a new audience. It's a cross-pollination, and, again, really the biggest is, I knew it was going to be a good conversation. These are the conversations I like to have.
I asked that question because I think I want the listener and the audience to learn how to say yes to things.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because you have to, yeah, sure. You have to be, particular with your time, but very few of us are the Joe Rogans of the world, or like the Gary V's, where you're getting bombarded all the time,
right?
So a lot of this, like you have to say yes to things. You have to figure out what's in your lane and how to say yes.
I mean, there's a lot of DMs that I have of people that I used to want to say yes to all of them, like I said, and now I just can't. Like, especially with my work from home. If I'm back on the road more, I'll say yes to more.
Sure.
Because people like talking about themselves. I'm no different. And, it's fun to appear on stuff. And then also I remember when it seems like yesterday I was 23 years old, 24 years old. And I know that if I was in college or just out of college in this day and age, I would have a podcast and a YouTube channel, and I would be trying to fish for guests. I would already do it. I would send emails to people at ESPN and in Boston and whatever, just to say like, can I come see you at work? Can I come like, do you have any advice? And now I get those emails and I'm just like, gosh, I can't sit here and type an email. That's why like one of the things kind of on my to-do list, and I don't know how soon I'll get it done, but maybe 2023 is the year, is to write like an ebook, write like a 40, 50 page ebook, sell it for like $3. So that when I get all those emails and DMs like, hey, I'm in high school, do you have any advice on like what I could do? Be like, hey man, I wrote a 30-page ebook. It's $3 just to like for my time, whatever. Right. Like, here you go, man. And so because I do love to help and I want to help and I like to appear on things, but like you said, there's not always time.
Last question. I believe everyone has a unique power for them that they go out and give to the world, and then the world gives them something back in return, a superpower. LeBron's basketball. What's your superpower?
That's a great question, Elliot. I like to acknowledge good questions because I think that one of my power, I'll give two. One of them is like a tangible thing. I like to think I'm a very good interviewer. The reason why I started my podcast is because I took this 3-day seminar when I worked at ESPN, and it was all about interviewing. It was 9 to 5 in a conference room for 3 days. Going into it, I was just like, what the hell are we going to talk about for 24 hours over the course of 3 days in a conference room? It was the most fascinating 3 days of my career outside of like going to Brazil and calling a Charles Oliveira fight. But like, I just soaked up so much. It was like incredible in terms of the amount of knowledge, the examples. The guy's name was John Sawatsky. If you listen to my podcast, like I'll shout him out all the time in terms of like the mechanics of a good interview and in the bigger picture, what makes good content with people talking. And so I really took it to heart. I stayed in touch with him for a few years after that, even though he lived in like a different state and stuff. I would call him, and he eventually got laid off by ESPN too. I think he's like retired now, but that to me is like so important. That's helped me from a play-by-play standpoint. That helps me when I'm on a desk hosting studio shows. That helps me immensely in a podcast setting. It helps me right now as a guest on a podcast. So the input output of content, journalism, interviewing, that sort of thing. The other thing is I, by and large, have just like really focused on positive thinking and good energy, like high energy. Be a person that smiles a lot, be a person that laughs a lot, be a person that provides laughs, helps other people, makes other people feel good. And I think that's one of my biggest strengths is that you could put me next to Cruz, you could put me next to Bisping, you put me next to Felder, Cormier, all three of them, Chiesa, on a desk, whatever. And we're going to have a good time while doing our jobs. And I believe I'm particularly good at that. Lighthearted, but also taking it serious, because Drew Dober's in there going through hell. But this is also entertainment.
Right.
We got to figure out how to marry it all together. And yeah, positivity and pretty good at interviewing, which is like hard saying thing. Being a good listener.
Yeah, interviewing's hard. I was I won't say I'm good at it yet, but I was terrible at it when I started. So
yeah.
I'm embarrassed by my first 100 podcasts.
I can become a much better listener at home, but when I'm in the setting with like the headphones on and the microphone and content, I'm a very good listener and interviewer.
Man, tell everyone where they can reach you, all that stuff.
My podcast is called Fitz Nation. You can find it on audio platforms. You can find it on UFC Fight Pass. My Instagram and TikTok and Twitter is at Brendan Fitz TV. And that is something that I advise anybody, especially young wannabe broadcasters and things, even fighters, whatever, learn how to make the most of social media and reels and that sort of thing. That's like something that I really got after in 2022. And like, if I talk to college classes, I'll be like, download this app, learn how to edit, learn how to capture, like do all that stuff. That's the way it's going. And if you want to buy a t-shirt, I just, threw up a t-shirt with a logo on it last month. So there we go. Nice. You can find me on my social channels.
Homie, I want to thank you first for two things. One, for coming up to me that backstage at the UFC. I have a very different UFC experience than you do.
Yeah.
Mine was not as good and wasn't so comfortable for me. So sometimes I can be a little standoffish at events because I have a bad taste in my mouth from certain aspects and things, but you came up to me and like I said, you were very, very genuine and it made me feel good, so thank you, first of all, for that. Two, you don't have to be so kind to me when my fighters fight. And you are, you're very kind to me and me as a coach and all of those things. And, I'm just a guy coaching, holding a mouthpiece and water bottle. You don't have to be as kind as you are. And you're always very kind. To the point where even the other broadcasters will join in that kindness after you start it. So, and that really helps me, I get some cred for that. So, I greatly appreciate those two things. And I just wanted to make sure that I say them to you and that it does. I am very aware. I am very aware that you're kinder to me than you are to other people. So I do really greatly appreciate it. So thanks.
Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate that, man. Yeah. The fact that I made you feel good back there because I went up to you and like showed a genuine care for meeting you and how you're doing. Like, thanks for saying that, because sometimes we not like I don't get intimidated by famous people, but at the same time, like sometimes there's this attitude of like, I don't want to bother you. You're with your athlete, whatever. But for the most part, I like when people come up to me. And so it's nice to hear like, no, I liked when you came up to me. It was good to have that interaction. And now look at us. We're like connected. I hope to go to a retreat in Maui someday, maybe when the baby's a little older, but yeah, no, it's great. And then also like, you deserve it. You're a credentialed coach. You fought in the UFC, and your soundtrack is fantastic, especially in the Apex. We need all the help we can get in the Apex. So when you're like yelling things, it's great. It really helps the TV product. And like, if you're going against Saif Saud, who's also a great friend of mine, and like, I don't know how you are with Saif, but you guys would chop it up great too.
Saif and I trained together back in the day.
Saif has been so good to me because we have the show UFC Breakdown on YouTube that we just started last summer, and like, great coaching mind, but also like a life coach in a sense. And like, he gave me this challenge. Last thing, I don't know, we want to get out of here.
Yeah, go ahead.
He gave me this challenge early November because I was like, it's a little over 220. I was just feeling like slobby, just like trying to like drop the pounds that I know I should drop and like feel like the athlete that I used to be in high school and in college. And it's just like, gosh, man, I was like, he was like, we'll talk later. We'll talk. And so we talked like after we were taping the show that day. And I was just like, I'm too rich, man. Like, I live a nice life. Like, I'm at home. Like I told you on my podcast, I was like, I live a nice life. What do I do? Why should I do jujitsu? He's like, because you take it, it takes your nice life away from you. I love that quote from you. And Saif gave me a challenge. He gave me a bet on November 1st. He said, by December 1st, you're going to be 206 pounds, light heavyweight. You're going to make the number or else you owe me $500. And so I made it before Thanksgiving. I made it in like 22 days.
Nice.
Now, a bit of a weight cut, last 3 pounds,
whatever,
last 2-3 pounds, but he just was like, you need to see that number on the scale. So now my new one is by January 14th, our fight night to start the year. Saif's going to be there. I have to be 196, and I woke up at like 206. So I got time.
Let's go. You got time. Let's make it happen.
I figure again, I'll get down to 200, 199. Water cut.
It's done.
Yeah,
done. To answer your question about why I noticed why it made me feel good is because I'm a softie.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm not this like, I do sometimes have this hard exterior, and I was a fighter, and you hear me yell and scream in the Apex, but deep down inside, I'm soft. So, but all right, man, appreciate you coming on. You're the man, bro. And that's it, everyone. As always, don't go out in the world and try to be Brendan. He has his unique and special gift. Don't go out in the world and try to be me. I have my unique thing that I do. Everyone, please go out there and find your own power. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found something useful that you can take and implement into your life. Don't forget to head over to wherever you are listening to this podcast and leave a review. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, go follow me on social media at FireMarshal205 on Instagram. Leave a comment, anything that you would like there. And as always, if you think this would be useful for somebody else that you know for their life, send it their way. That would be greatly appreciated. That's it for this episode, guys. I hope you all have a great day, and you go step into that power so that you can give your purpose to the world.